Join the conversation.
Hello? Hello?
Live on the Exchange Podcast with Loopy Rose.
The Exchange. Welcome to the Exchange. Let the truth ignite. With Lupe Rose, we bring the dark to light. The Exchange. Conversation, controversy on the stage. Join the spark, feel the flame. This is the Exchange. Step inside, no filter, no disguise. Pull the curtain back, expose the lies. Wall Street gangs, government shames. Truth for the people runs deep in our veins. Tune in, join in, don't wait. Conversation sparks change, elevate. From corruption to courage, let the mic engage. This is the heartbeat, the Exchange. The Exchange.
You're listening to Loopy Rose on the Exchange.
Welcome to all who have decided to come and check out my podcast. Welcome to the Exchange. I'm Lupe Rose, and this is the place where nothing and no one holds me back. This is my story, raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic. Over the coming episodes, I'm taking you on a journey through my life. From my early days in the music industry to the businesses I helped build, to ideas I created that you might have seen on store shelves without even knowing it. But this isn't just a success story. It's also about the rise and the fall, the empire I built, only to have it torn down by racism, corruption, and forces determined to silence me. This is a docu-cast, a documentary-style podcast where I'll share the truth behind the headlines, the fights behind closed doors, and the resilience it takes to keep going when everything's stacked against you. There will be conversation, there will be controversy, and there will be no sugarcoating. So, buckle up. This is The Exchange, and this is my side of the story. Let's get into it. This is a dedicated series called The Rape of Wall Street. Growing up wasn't easy. My mom was a single parent and my dad was a military man, so we bounced around a lot. But my teenage years, I spent them in what folks called the jungle of Los Angeles. That's where you risked having your purse snatched on the way to school, where crack pipes littered the sidewalks and gunshots were more background noise than exception. It was tough, no sugarcoating it. I went to Dorsey High School, home of the Dons. But even in the middle of all that, music was my refuge. We grew up in a household where every vinyl record imaginable was stacked on shelves. Every genre, every vibe. I remember standing outside the warehouse music store at Rodeo Drive in La Brea, waiting in line for the very first Queen Latifah album, or the new drop from LL Cool J, Grandmaster Flash, and all those East Coast legends. But it wasn't until West Coast rap really took off that I fell head over heels in love with the music industry. I knew right then I had to be part of it somehow. I was about 20 when I started following radio DJ Dominique DuPrima and her political show. I'd ask her if there was anything I could do to help set up, and I'd follow her around as her show Word on the Streets gained momentum. That's when it hit me I had to be a part of this world. Shortly after, my brother told me he was starting a rap group in the Bay Area called Meal Ticket. He saw my hunger for the streets and the music and asked me to manage them. I said yes immediately. I was hustling walking their CDs into radio stations, booking shows and concerts, doing whatever it took. I interned at almost every LA radio station I could find, soaking up everything. But when my brother's group broke up, I had to move away from LA. Still, my radio journey wasn't over. I started selling radio advertising, which sparked a love for marketing and consulting. I even had my own radio show, a Friday night slot called Fuego, where I DJ'd and broke new artists, giving fresh voices a chance to be heard. I also promoted concerts, always hungry to get back into artist management. Then one night, I stumbled across my then girlfriend's son's notebook. It was filled with rap lyrics. That was all I needed. I found out he wanted to be a rapper, so I took that as my cue to jump back in. I started managing him, and my girlfriend became my business partner. Together, we launched Two Divas Entertainment. We began hosting artist showcases to scout new talent, and I used my radio show to break their music and give them spins and opportunities. And that's how my journey in the music industry truly took shape, rooted in passion, perseverance, and a relentless drive to make my mark. After those early days, the opportunities just kept coming. The concerts, the music, the radio interviews, we were living the dream. We were working in the best studios Hollywood had to offer, from Paramount Studios to other top-tier spots. We felt unstoppable. Two Divas Entertainment was on fire. Our artists were getting spins on notable radio stations. We were charting. Suddenly, we weren't just another small entertainment company. We became the talk of the town. Artists were lining up, hoping to be part of our showcases, hoping to be the next big star. We hustled hard, performing artist showcases all over, searching for that next superstar. We attended music conferences regularly, always networking, always grinding to get our artists headlined. But one conference changed everything. It was an urban network event. I saw how other record labels were promoting their artists with massive marketing packages, posters everywhere, CD giveaways, brochures with bios, and so much more. It hit me I had to step up my game. I was tired of paying for studio time, too. I realized it was time to take this business seriously. So I opened our own offices and built music studios in-house. That move grounded us. I expanded my radio show from just Fridays to weeknights every night of the week. I even launched several radio formats, and one of those formats is still the #1 radio show in the area today. Our business took off, growing tremendously. But with success came the darker side of the music industry, the dirt, the slime, the people who didn't run their businesses with integrity. We filtered through it all, protecting our artists at every turn. Our name grew. We began promoting notable artists and concerts, and our level of success in the community was unmatched. I invested deeply in my artists' careers, marketing them hard. But then, one of my artists who started with me told me he wanted to leave. A music label had been whispering in his ear, tempting him away. That moment hit me hard. I felt betrayed and angry. I went dark. I quit. I released him. It was a painful blow. I started letting go of everything. The studios, artist management. The betrayal cut deep. But what I didn't realize then was how lost I was. I had no label. I was promoting artists and launching their careers, but I wanted to release their music independently. I just didn't know how. Then, at another concert, a group of ambitious businessmen approached me with an offer. Join them to create a label for 100 grand. Almost all the money was paid, but soon I learned it was a scam. They had no intention of launching a label. I was losing at every turn. I gave up. I'll never forget that low point. I was depressed, stuck in bed under the covers for about a week, feeling like the weight of the world was crushing me. I was done. Done with the music scene, done with the constant battles, the scams, the heartbreak. Then my phone rang. It was my sister. She asked me where I'd been, why I hadn't answered my calls. When I told her I'd given up, that I was depressed and ready to walk away from it all, she didn't accept it. No, she cussed me out in the way only a sister can. She told me to get up, get dressed, because she was coming over. That moment, that was my true brown sugar moment. The moment I realized I wasn't alone and that I had a fighter right beside me. When she got to my place, I poured out everything the money lost, the betrayal, the scam that had left me broken. Without hesitation, she wrote me a check and told me, "Go get what's yours." Those words and that gesture changed everything. But her support didn't stop there. She introduced me to some artists she believed in. Artists with mad potential who would become the very first signees on my new music label, West Swag Music Group. West Swag was more than a label. It was a rebirth. And it all started when I met Paul Ring. Paul Ring is a titan in the music industry. For 26 years, he's been a major force at Universal Music Group, running Private Eye Records and now Bungalow Records. He's worked with legends Rick James, James Brown, Patti LaBelle, Rodney Jerkins. His track record is unmatched. When Paul heard about the scam I'd fallen victim to, he didn't just sympathize. He offered me mentorship and a partnership with an opportunity to launch my label under Bungalow Records with Universal Music Group distribution. That day didn't just change my business. It changed my life. With Paul's guidance, West Swag Music Group focused on the West Coast, but our reach was nationwide. I started signing the best talent from LA to New York. We even collaborated on a song. It was Nene Ali featuring the legendary poet Maya Angelou. That's how far this journey took me. But one of my proudest moments was signing Cece Peniston. Cece isn't just any artist. She's a former beauty queen and one of the most successful dance club artists in Billboard history. Back in the early 90s, she scored 5 #1 hits on the U.S., Billboard Hot Dance Music, and Club Play charts. Her iconic track finally sold 3 million copies worldwide and still gets people on the dance floor decades later. When I signed Cece, my goal was to reinvent her career. We released several remixes that resonated with a new generation of fans. One of those tracks, Stupid, which I co-wrote, hit #1. It was a validation not just of Cece's greatness, but of the vision I had for West Swag and for my own ability to create hits. Things were moving fast. We were promoting national concerts and tours, putting West Swag on the map. But then the ground started shifting beneath us. The music industry was changing, piracy was rampant, 360 deals were squeezing artists, and the rise of iTunes revolutionized how people consumed music. Money started drying up, and the business we'd worked so hard to build was suddenly under threat. But those challenges only made me more determined, because West Swag wasn't just a label. It was a movement born from resilience, family, mentorship, and the belief that no matter what, the music and the truth would survive. As the music industry kept evolving and record sales plummeted, I had to face some hard truths. No matter how optimistic I was, the reality was clear. Promoting concerts and investing in touring was becoming more about generating revenue than selling physical records. The days when record sales drove the business were nearly over. Free download sites like LimeWire, BearShare, and countless others flooded the internet, making it almost impossible to protect music from piracy. It was out of control, but I wasn't about to quit hustling. I started getting calls from other labels and independent artists looking for marketing help. This was a new grind, helping others navigate the shifting landscape. I began consulting business owners on new opportunities. I even invested in 10 internet TV channels well before Netflix and the streaming giants changed the game. I was ahead of the curve, selling ideas no one else was thinking about. Another one of my proudest projects was launching my video rotation. It was a platform designed to give independent artists a shot at getting their music videos on rotation, something MTV and VH1 weren't doing for anyone outside the big names. If you weren't already notable, you didn't get a chance. My video rotation charged artists just $10 a month to get their videos seen, and it was a lifeline for the underdogs, the artists who didn't have the backing of major labels but had the talent and hunger to break through. This hustle ran parallel to our touring and concert promotions. We kept pushing, letting our artists open for major acts, feeling like we had something special brewing. We even made it to the Grammys and other big award shows, with some of our productions getting nominated. But even with that success, the shift in the industry was undeniable. The streaming platforms began to take off. I also expanded my work into Latin TV, signing major Latin artists and releasing their music. One of those artists was Mari Boquitas, a notable Latin superstar who had once been signed to Sergio Andrade, the infamous producer arrested in Brazil on charges of kidnapping and corrupting minors. Mari's story was heartbreaking. She had escaped an abusive situation under his label, and I was determined to help her rebuild her career and separate from that dark past. Then, out of the blue, a colleague approached me with a unique opportunity. He asked if I could assist a tequila brand that needed help navigating the entertainment industry. The client wanted me to introduce him to some of my elite contacts and create a marketing campaign focused on women. I thought, why not? I met with the gentleman, and he told me all about his brand, a beautifully designed bottle of tequila, crafted by men but created by women, made for women. The concept was strong, the product gorgeous. I dove into the project head first. I created the entire marketing strategy, wrote treatments for a reality show, meant to air on Latin TV, back when reality shows were booming. It was called The Dame's House, and it was designed to spotlight women competing to become the face of the tequila brand. The show was ambitious. Week 1 kicks off with 20 to 30 women arriving at a secret mansion, meeting the tequila, tasting it, and competing to prove they have what it takes to be a dame's spokeswoman. In the weeks that follow, the women face challenges to learn about the product. The design dresses, inspired by a notable brand, secure nightclub placements, create social media buzz, write jingles, and produce commercials. The competition includes charity events, trips to Jalisco, Mexico to learn about tequila's origins, and tests of their social savvy. Each week, contestants are eliminated until only one dame remains, crowned in a gown designed by the designer herself. This show had everything a mix of glamour, grit, and real-world business challenges. It was a perfect fit for the brand and a bold leap into entertainment marketing. I charged the client $250,000 for walking him through closed doors, introducing him to elite situations, and delivering the entire marketing package, along with TV placement for the reality TV show. But here's where things took a hard turn. He never paid me, always talking about waiting on investor dollars, waiting for funding that never came. The promise was endless, but the checks never cleared. That's when the shift became undeniable, not just in the music industry, but in business itself. I realized that no matter how much hustle and creativity I poured in, not everyone operates with integrity. The game had changed, and the hustle had to evolve. I didn't really know what to do next. I'll never forget that empty feeling, the one that settles deep in your chest when you realize the people you trusted, the ones you met along the way, have taken advantage of you. It's a feeling of betrayal, of hard work, poured into projects only to have it ripped away. Early on, as a marketing person, I had a situation that still upsets me to this day. I created a full marketing scheme for a major food chain. Every idea, every detail was mine. I was strung along for years, only to be met with plagiarism and outright theft. It disgusted me then, and it still does now. From that battle to the assholes in the music industry, it was a brutal, familiar pattern. I created entire movements, poured my heart into them, only to be met with the same bullshit. Don't get me wrong, I've met plenty of decent people along the way, but there's something strange about this business. When people run out of money or want to use your talents, they always want to rope you in as a business partner or make you believe in their trajectory. Being an entrepreneur has its challenges, some good, some bad, ups and downs. But this time, it was different. This time, I was furious. And my family was depending on that money. I was so confused. Racing thoughts, anxiety-driven nights. One night I had the worst panic attack just thinking about it all. By then, I had stepped away from radio sales, scaled back my promotions and events. I was focused on this last project, with everything I had left. Sure, I was still releasing music, but barely. The real blow came one evening when my partner asked me about the paycheck. You see, I had this tendency to invest my own money up front. I would pay my team for graphics, logos, travel, marketing, all the creatives needed to complete the work. I'd always figured I'd be reimbursed. That night, we were sitting in our new home, the first one we bought that was customized just the way we wanted it. I was afraid to open conversation. We both drove top-of-the-line Benzes, mine a drop-top CLK 500, hers a CLS 500. The third car, a new Hummer sitting in the driveway. We were comfortable. I had all the toys I wanted, motorcycles, which were my mental release. The bills were something she took care of. We were comfortable. But I could tell she was disappointed. Finally, I asked her if she wanted to talk. We talked late into the night. She scolded me, but she made sense. She told me she wanted me to stop working for everyone else from artists to companies. The music game was a passion project, a passion business. But artists don't truly understand the financial investment it takes. The studio time, the marketing, radio spins, events, performances. They want fame overnight, but don't realize the time, the money, the headaches behind the scenes. That night, I promised her I would end it all. I just didn't know where to begin. She told me to focus on my own business, something I wanted to do. She reminded me how I just poured my soul into that beverage brand, helping a man sell a woman's brand as his own. She said, "Why don't you create your own women's brand? Take everything you learned and build something that's yours." Enough was enough. That night, sleep eluded me. My head was spinning with ideas. Questions: when do I stop? How do I break this down to the artists, the booking agents, the people I promoted with and for? Funny thing is, a few years earlier, I'd started a similar business but never pushed it forward. Maybe I could dust off that old business license and get started. But I was all over the place, confused and uncertain. The weeks that followed were tough, filled with hard conversations. I asked my partner if we could talk again. I wanted to share my thoughts and jump back into the conversation we'd started. I wondered if she'd buy into my ideas. Where do we go from here? Okay, I was ready. I had sorted out my thoughts, but you have to understand I'm the type of person who needs to really digest conversations. I've always been this way. I used to say yes to everything, jumping headfirst into other people's situations whenever they pulled me in. But my partner, the woman who's always been my opposite, she taught me how to slow down my thoughts, how to think things through instead of just reacting. We were different in a lot of ways. She saved money, I spent it. She preferred to wait. I wanted to build Rome overnight. But somehow, we were both right. I'm great at bringing ideas to life. Give me any idea, and I promise I'll execute it 1,000 times over. People love that about me. I'm a big dreamer, a big visionary, someone who turns thoughts into reality. But I have to write things down. No matter what it is, I have to build a business plan, create a deck. I have to see it for myself before I buy into my own ideas. It's weird how my mind works, but that's how I execute my greatness. So, after some time, we sat down again. I told her I was ready. I'd given it plenty of thought, and I knew where to go from here. I'd already met with a few trusted colleagues. I even went back to my sister, the same sister who had once given me that check to get started, and this time I wrote her a check. I felt it was only right to pay her back since I wanted to change focus and switch gears. I told her I wanted to leave the music industry behind, but for a new purpose. She was all in, always has been. Then I talked to my brother, who was living with me at the time. He's my cheerleader, my A&R director. He lived with me after his wife passed away from cancer. He brought his 5-year-old son with him. That loss devastated him. He had moved from Sacramento to live with me, and he made me promise I'd help raise his son if anything happened to his wife. I agreed. Anyway, my brother was disappointed about me leaving the music industry, but he understood. He supported my dreams. Next, I went to the big cheese, the queen, my mom. I wanted her approval. My mom is the best mother on this planet. No exaggeration. She's an entrepreneur herself, owning a daycare business. But every month, I drop off a check to take care of her. I didn't care that she had her own money. She invested so much in me. There was nothing I couldn't ask her for. By this point, everyone said, "Go for it. Concentrate on you. Reach for the stars." A few years earlier, I'd reconnected with my dad. He was absent until I was about 20 or 21. I had moved down south to live with him. He was sorry his military career kept him away and felt like he owed me something. He had asked me to meet up with him one day, but he wanted to keep this meeting a secret. And he and I agreed to drive and met each other halfway. When we met, he brought me a suitcase full of money, his life savings, and made me promise to keep it secret. I was so scared, I was appreciative, and he made me promise to put it in a safe place, and forget about it. I shared that secret with my partner. We put it in the attic, and I dip into it from time to time when I needed it. It upset her because my dad made me promise to save it for retirement. But I thought, what if I don't live to retire? I chuckled, but agreed. That was our secret. The time came when I had to tell her I was all in. I was ready to take that leap of faith, and I was going to ask if I could open the suitcase. I said, hey, I made up my mind. I'm all in. I'm ready to open this business and give it everything I've got. She bought in. I couldn't believe it. I was ecstatic. She said, let's do it. I'm happy for you. My heart was fluttering. I'll never forget sitting there full of excitement. Now, what should I name it? I asked. We started brainstorming immediately, like Lucy and Ethel on a mission. I wanted to focus on women by women, for women with no gimmicks like the guy who stiffed me. Then I thought, what's missing in the beverage industry? There are plenty of wine, spirits, and people even making their own beers. What about a beer made for women? After a moment, I said, she. I wanted to name it after her, her last name, Shelby. I took the first 3 letters, and that's how She Beer was born. I immediately started the paperwork. It was real. The business had a name. It was She Beer. I was planning to make a formal announcement at my next big event. For weeks, I was caught up in planning everything and then planning the plans around that. The event was set for August 22nd, 2010, an official launch party at the Aqua Lounge in Beverly Hills. I had friends flying in for this star-studded red carpet affair, a celebrity host, all the bells and whistles. It was also my artist album release party. I was ready to let everyone know. I was stepping away for a while. This was it. Let's go. I couldn't believe it. I was feeling some kind of way, excited, nervous, and hopeful. About a week before the event, my brother sent me to Sacramento to scout fresh talent. We ended up signing a duo called Lover Boy Swag. These guys were incredible. Even though I planned to step away from the label and the music business, I couldn't let my brother or the group down. So I signed them. When I got home, my brother and I were supposed to meet the next day. It was my mother's birthday, just a week before the event. I called him to let him know the group was signed. I was emotional, excited, but my brother wasn't home. He was at my older sister's house. On the phone, his voice was low, monotone. I asked if he was okay. He said he was just feeling under the weather. He asked me to pick him up the next day because my sister, my mom, and her friends were heading to Los Angeles to celebrate my mom's birthday. I agreed. The next morning at 6 a.m., I got a call from my mother. They were still planning to leave, but she told me my brother was really sick. She said they were calling an ambulance, and he was being taken to the local hospital. I jumped up, got dressed, and told her I'd meet him there. She said she would continue on to LA with her friends and my oldest sister. I reassured her I'd be at the hospital and told her to send my nephew with my brother. At the hospital, my brother filled me in. He said he hadn't wanted to tell my mom how bad it was, but he'd been vomiting blood for the last few nights. That wasn't good. But my nephew was hungry and asked me to get him something to eat at the cafeteria, so we stepped out for a minute. When we returned, my brother said he was freezing. I asked the nurses for blankets and told them he was shivering badly. They brought him blankets and some medication to stop the shaking. As time passed, my brother and I started having more emotional talks about the business, about his son, about life. He started to scare me. He made me promise that if he didn't make it, I'd raise his son. He looked at his little boy's tender face and told him, "Son, if something happens to me, you stay with your auntie. Be a good boy." I was so upset hearing him say that to a 5-year-old who'd lost his mom just 6 months earlier. I held my brother's hand, sitting by his bedside, trying to reassure him he'd pull through. I even promised him that once he got out, I'd buy him the lowrider Chevy he'd been eyeing at the dealership down the street. I was trying to calm him, bring some peace. But then things shifted. It got weird. He started asking me to move things in his room, move an IV pole. When I asked why, he said, "Because the man behind me is in the way." I was starting to freak out. I asked him to calm down. But he kept talking about people in the room and beautiful pictures he saw on the ceiling. Now I was really tripping. I told him he was scaring me. He told me I scared him too, that I couldn't see what he saw. He said there were things dancing on my shoulders. I used to dance when I was younger, so to make him smile, I danced right there in his hospital room. He always loved it when I danced for him. But after that, things went quiet. I was terrified. He started dozing off. I stepped outside and called my partner, crying. I told her things felt off. I needed her support. I called my other sister, who was on vacation a couple hours away, and asked her to come. I even called my best friend. I felt like I was losing my mind. When I went back in, I saw nurses working frantically on my brother. I asked what was happening. They told me he was having a seizure and asked me to step out until he was stabilized. I did, then started making more calls this time. My tone changed. It was urgent. Get here now. I told everyone I needed them there, and so did he. I called my mom. It had been a few hours since she left for LA. She was on the train down, but I told her to catch a cab back. I didn't think my brother was doing well. The doctor came in and told me they were ordering a blood transfusion because my brother was bleeding internally. I felt like I was losing my mind. A few weeks before this, my brother and I had talked. He was deeply depressed after losing his wife 6 months earlier. He told me he didn't want to live anymore, that he was in so much pain. I wasn't sure if he'd taken something. He was coming in and out of consciousness at the hospital, but we still had conversations. He kept telling me, "Take care of Mom, take care of the family, take care of my son." I reassured him I would. He told me, "Don't give up on the music." I wanted to tell him I wouldn't, but I told him I'd try to balance my dreams with his. Our conversations became fewer. Family started arriving. My best friend was first. She was local and prayed for my brother as he lay semi-conscious. My partner finally arrived. We were all confused and numb. The baby was there too, witnessing a repeat of the tragedy that had taken his mother. My mom was on the phone every 5 minutes. All I could do was tell her to hurry. The doctor told me they were moving my brother from the emergency room to the ICU. My sister arrived with her family, and we were all a mess. Then the doctors told me they couldn't stabilize him. He was losing too much blood. They didn't know if he was going to make it. I begged them to keep him alive until my mom got there. But God chose otherwise. My brother passed away that day, my mother's birthday. When my mom finally arrived, she was literally carried in by her friends and family. They escorted her into the room where my brother had just taken his last breath. I was lost. I just lost it. I was numb. Nothing or no one could prepare me for this. I've always been the glue holding this family together, especially when it comes to my siblings. But now I had to plan a funeral, something I was totally unprepared for. My brother wasn't just my sibling. He was my best friend, my everything. How was I supposed to move on? And how was I going to keep my promise to raise his son, a little boy who wasn't part of my daily life before this? I didn't know how to cope in those first days. I was lost. I decided to keep the event date on August 22nd, but in the meantime, I was neck deep in planning my brother's funeral. I was in and out, juggling everything. Luckily, I had friends and employees who made sure the show we were all looking forward to, the one in my brother's honor, would go on. That's what he would have wanted. But I shifted gears once again. I put the new business on hold. Maybe it was guilt. If I closed the music business down, would I be letting him down? I felt like I wasn't living up to his expectations if I walked away. The next couple of years were an emotional roller coaster. Now, I was raising a little boy who had lost both his parents. At the same time, I was trying to keep my brother's music dreams alive in a business that was struggling. I couldn't balance the weight of my emotions or the depression that consumed not just me, but my precious mother. I tried to be there for her every day, building a new level of mental strength and responsibility to support her. But it was overwhelming. For a year or two, my focus shifted almost entirely to raising this baby, giving him some clarity and stability. I still worked, but I scaled back to focus on him and his future. I didn't know how to heal. It was hard. The next 4 years were even tougher. I thought I had given myself enough time to try again, but little by little I had to let go. Funny thing is, I think God made all the difference. I believe He helped me navigate through it all. Eventually, I sold West Swag Music Group. I took about a year to figure out what was next, trying to mentally prepare myself for a new life. I got my son involved in extracurricular activities. I put him in therapy. We enrolled him in football. A month after his father passed, I felt like he needed to keep his little mind occupied on something positive. He actually played well through high school, his senior year. I pushed him hard. He found a love for football, and I became a football mom every day he attended practice and became stronger both mentally and physically. Every weekend we attended his games, tailgating and all. And several years later, there I was. Once again, I felt ready. It was time to have that conversation with my partner. I'm ready. I just had to figure out how to balance motherhood while opening a new business. Plus, I needed the distraction as the pain of losing my brother and finally selling my music business and my TV channels. I felt there's no better time than the present. What I thought was going to be a simple, supportive conversation didn't go down that way at all. I couldn't believe it. There I was, pouring my heart out, saying, "Honey, I'm ready. I'm ready to start the business." And she hits me with, "What business?" I said, "The beer business." She replied, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes, dead ass serious." Then came the flood of doubts and what ifs. What if it doesn't work? What if it's too risky? She felt that now, with this little boy to raise and all these new responsibilities, we should take it slow. Not exactly the response I wanted to hear. She went on about all the challenges that could come, all the what ifs. This wasn't the conversation we had several years ago. I was disappointed. I didn't know what went wrong. I knew the responsibilities I had, and I knew opening a business wasn't easy, but I was ready. I was ready to give it 100%. All I needed was access to the suitcase, but she wasn't having it. We'd had disagreements before, but I usually got my way. This time, she reminded me of the very costly weekends and all the money spent on radio budgets when I was deep in the music industry. I had a car, but 9 times out of 10, I hired a driver. I even had a limousine on standby and a regular driver named Joe. I'd call Joe because I needed the driving time to work. There was always something demanding my attention, and I lived far from the city. There were the studio bills, the bottle service, the marketing investments. Running an independent label was expensive. No question. She gave me an ultimatum. She said, "I'll support you and this dream. But here's the deal. If you want it, you pay for it. No more pulling from the household or retirement money." I was a little angry. I didn't just spend money, I mostly replaced it. Maybe not immediately, but it got replaced. I was confused, unsure where to go from here. Then she said, "If you want it bad enough, prove to me this isn't just another idea we're going to invest in." I asked, "How do you want me to prove it?" She said, "You come up with the money." I asked, "How do you expect me to do that?" She said, "You have a lot of nice things. Beautiful cars outside that are paid for, expensive motorcycles, those Rolex watches. Sell them. There's plenty of money there." I was dumbfounded, confused. It took me a minute to process all of that. I thought maybe I could go to my mom for her opinion, thinking she'd side with me. But honestly, all she said was, "Well," she paused and said, "Well, if you need to use my car, it's available." I couldn't believe Mama sided with her. I was really confused. But then I thought, all right, I'll prove it to you. And that's when I started selling everything, little by little. One by one, the Hummer, the Mercedes, the motorcycles. I poured every dime into the preparation and creation of She Beer. And that's when it all began. I rounded up some friends and immediately went into full-on hustle mode. Phone calls, meetings, brainstorming sessions. I was everywhere at once. I needed bottles designed that would stand out on the shelves, packaging that would make people stop and take notice. But more than that, I needed buzz. I needed people to believe in this dream as much as I did. So I called one of my best friends, someone who knew the grind, someone who could help me turn this idea into reality. Before I knew it, I wasn't working alone anymore. I had assembled a team, an incredible group of people who shared my vision and passion. Together, we started piecing together the puzzle that would become She Beer. There were late nights filled with ideas flying around, debates over designs, tasting sessions, and the endless grind to get things done right. Every step felt like a battle, but it was the kind of battle I was ready to fight. This wasn't just a business anymore. It was a lifeline, a promise to my brother, to myself, to my son. And just like that, the foundation was laid. But this was only the beginning. Because starting a business isn't about just having a great idea or even a strong team. It's about the fight that comes after the dream, that relentless push through doubts, setbacks, and moments when giving up seems easier. And let me tell you, that fight was coming. This was me stepping into a new world, one where everything was on the line. And I wasn't just doing it for me anymore. I was doing it for a legacy. Stay tuned. Episode 2 is where we take flight and everything She Beer and She Beverage is disclosed. No holding back from beginning to end as the rape of Wall Street continues.
They exchange. Welcome to the exchange. Let the truth ignite. When Lupe rose, we bring the darker light. The exchange. Conversation, controversy on the stage. Join the spark, feel the flame. This is the exchange. Step inside, no filter, no disguise. Pull the curtain back, expose the lies. Wall Street gangs, government chains. Truth for the people once